Welcome to our latest Wandering Walks of Wonder History Tour. Today we're taking a journey through the heart of downtown Independence, Missouri, where we'll blend history, landmarks, and museums into one unforgettable experience. We'll start at one of the oldest homes in the city, then step back in time through the region's first courthouse that was built way back in 1827, and from there we'll wind through the center of the downtown area before exploring more sites associated with Harry S. Truman and the history of independence. Our first stop on our tour is one of the oldest homes in Independence, and that's the Critzer home. Martin Critzer moved to Independence area in 1838, becoming one of the earlier settlers in Jackson County. He worked as a merchant and grocer, eventually earning enough money to buy the property on which this home now stands, and also farmland in the surrounding community. He apparently continued to buy farmland well up into 1858. Independence, Missouri was established in 1827, and this historic log courthouse is structurally all that dates from the city's founding. There are a number of other structures historically relevant to the early days of independence, but none as old as this structure. This log building originally was constructed by Algernon Sidney Gilbert, who was an early convert to Mormonism and was an instrumental figure in the early Mormon church in the Independence area. This log building was constructed in 1827 and served as both Gilbert's home and store, which later provisioned freighters for their journey on the Santa Fe Trail. In 1833, the citizens of Jackson County decided to forcibly evict the Mormons and confiscated all their property. This building then was turned over to the government of Independence, Missouri. This building itself played a critical role in the early years of Jackson County governance. The courthouse would have provided the earliest forms of government service and would be the last of civilization that many would see for years to come as they headed west. It's estimated that about 300,000 to 500,000 settlers over a period of about 6 decades began their overland route here in Independence. This log courthouse was also used by President Harry S. Truman, where he was presided as a judge until 1932, and it's one of the few remaining structures that date back to the early years of Jackson County's foundings. We're now moving into the heart of the downtown district of Independence, and the first stop that we have here is the historic Truman Courthouse. This courthouse served as one of the 2 sites that Truman worked at while serving as an Eastern County judge from 1922 to 1924, and then as a presiding judge from 1926 to 1934 here in Jackson County. The very first courthouse was constructed in 1836 on this site and has been remodeled many times since. In fact, Truman oversaw the 1933 remodeling of this courthouse in its current colonial revival style. The courtroom is significant because of its connection to Truman, who made his name in politics while serving as a judge here in Jackson County. As a county administrator, Truman improved county finances, built a county road system, and oversaw the construction of a county hospital. Truman's tenure as county judge provided the foundation for his future political career as a U.S. Senator, Vice President, and then President of the United States. As we walk a little bit through the downtown area, it's a great time to talk a little bit about the history of Independence, Missouri itself. Founded in 1827, Independence quickly became a vital hub for trade and migration on the American frontier. Its location near the Missouri River and along key overland routes made it the official starting point for the Santa Fe, Oregon, and California trails, earning it the nickname Queen City of the Trails. Thousands of pioneers, traders, and gold seekers passed through the area as they headed west, making Independence one of the busiest towns on the frontier during the mid-19th century. In the early 1830s, Independence also became a gathering place for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who believed the area to be of spiritual significance. However, rising tensions between local citizens and the growing Mormon community erupted into violent conflicts, culminating in the 1833 expulsion of the LDS settlers from Jackson County. During the Civil War, Independence saw multiple skirmishes and occupations as Union and Confederate forces battled for control in the area. The first Battle of Independence, which was in 1862, and the second battle in 1864 left a lasting mark on the city and its residents. In the 20th century, Independence gained national attention as the hometown of President Harry S. Truman. Three historic trails turned Independence, Missouri into the gateway of the West, making it a starting point for thousands of pioneers, traders, and adventurers. Those include the Oregon Trail, which was first established in 1840, which was a roughly 2,000-mile trail from Independence, Missouri here, and all the way to the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Then the Santa Fe Trail began here, which began way back in 1821, which connected Independence, Missouri to Santa Fe, which at the time was part of Mexico. Unlike the Oregon and California trails, the Santa Fe Trail was primarily a commercial trade route where merchants exchanged manufactured goods from the U.S. for silver furs and other products from Mexico. And then finally, in the 1840s, the California Trail branched off from the Oregon Trail and led settlers westward into Northern California. The discovery of gold in 1849 transformed this trail into a bustling highway for fortune seekers during the California Gold Rush. Ahead of us is the Ott Building, which has a great connection to Harry S. Truman. At one time, this building, which was constructed in 1887, housed the Community Savings and Loan Association. Harry Truman and two other men took over the Community Savings and Loan Association in 1925. During that time, Harry worked as the manager, and in 1926, Truman became president of the institution. Unfortunately, that business didn't work out and went bankrupt. The Ott Building has housed a number of different types of businesses and associations throughout its long 140 plus year tenure. Ahead of us is a statue of Harry S. Truman when he was in World War I. When the United States entered the World War in 1917, Harry Truman, then a 33-year-old farmer from Independence, Missouri, volunteered for military service. He joined the Missouri National Guard and was assigned to Battery F of the 129th Field Artillery Regiment. Truman quickly proved himself a capable leader. After training at Camp Donovan in Oklahoma, he was promoted to captain and given command of Battery D, known for being unruly and difficult to manage. Through patience, discipline, and strong leadership, Truman earned the respect and loyalty of his men. This building here on our left is most notable for a teenage employee who worked at Clinton's drugstore and went on to become President of the United States. In his first week of work, a 14-year-old Harry S. Truman earned $3 which he chose to spend on a present for his mother. Prior to that time, this location was home to a wood-framed general store in the late 19th century. That original store was rebuilt as a brick structure following a fire. George Clinton bought the building and established a drugstore on the main level in the 1890s. In February of 1906, the two neighboring blocks where Clinton's drugstore was located was destroyed by fire. George Clinton's brother chose to buy the damaged building in May and planned to demolish the existing building and replace it. The building now stands as a rectangular two-story commercial building right here in the heart of downtown Independence. Now known as the 1859 Jail Museum, the Jackson County Jail in Marshall's home was operational from 1859 until its official decommissioning in 1933, and during that time had a variety of uses. It was a private residence for the standing jailer and his family, held violators of prohibition laws, and was used for Works Progress Administration projects during the Great Depression. The jail was also central to the Civil War in the Missouri-Kansas border region, during which it was used as a hospital, the U.S. Provost Marshal's office, and held both military and civilian prisoners during the infamous Order No. 11. Some of the more famous inmates included guerrilla leader William Clark Cantrell and outlaw Frank James. Located at the historic 1928 Independence Fire Station No. 1, the Harry Truman National Historic Site Visitor Center displays information about the 33rd President and offers directions to the nearby Truman Farm and Truman Home, which we'll see here in just a bit. The fire station replaced a smaller, older station when it was constructed in 1928. The new firehouse also became home to the new 750-gallon America LaFrance fire trucks that were new to the region here at that time. Several decades later, the station could no longer support the fire department and moved out. It was used for a while as a community theater and in the 1970s as municipal housing before the Park Service purchased it in 1983 to use it as part of the Harry S. Truman National Historic Site. Trinity Episcopal Church is historically significant as it was where Harry Truman and Bess Wallace were married on June 28, 1919. In addition to Truman and his wife being married in Trinity Episcopal, Truman's daughter Margaret married her husband Clifton Daniel there in April of 1956. Bess Truman's funeral was also held at Trinity Episcopal Church in 1982. The church itself is reported to be the only example of the work of John Hubbard Sturgis, who introduced the Victorian Gothic design to the United States, and is the oldest one of his churches west of the Allegheny Mountains. We're now walking past what was once Independence's first high school. This has a great relationship to Harry S. Truman as he graduated here in 1901 as a member of the second graduating class from Independence High School. In addition to Harry S. Truman, other members of that graduating class included Charlie Ross, who later became his White House press secretary, and Bess Wallace, his future wife. As seniors, Harry Truman and Charlie Ross worked to create the Gleam, which was the school's first yearbook. Independence High School was built in 1898 and included a library, art studio, chemistry laboratory, and hardwood floors. The Truman Memorial Building was constructed in 1925 in the Classical Revival style. This building is 2 stories tall and made of brick. The building's really only alterations were made in 2001 when an addition was added to the rear of the building to allow for a larger performance stage. The building has gone by several names, including the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Building and the World War I Memorial Building. Harry S. Truman oversaw the dedication ceremony as he was a World War I veteran as well as the county judge for Eastern Jackson County. The building was rededicated the Truman Memorial Building in 2002. Overall, the building holds a lot of significance for Independence and the Trumans. The building served as a polling place for Harry and Bess for over 30 years, including the 1948 election which Harry Truman won. On July 27, 1945, the Memorial Building was the only location that Truman held a press conference while staying in Independence. Most importantly, a significant amount of presidential papers were stored in the building until the Truman Library was completed in 1957. First Presbyterian Church here in Independence was established way back in 1841. In 1913, First Presbyterian merged with Liberty Street Cumberland Presbyterian, which was established in the city's founding in 1826. The building that we see here today was constructed in 1888. This building, though, is also historic as it was where Harry Truman and Bess Wallace first met in 1892. It was the beginning of a lifelong relationship founded in its roots here at First Presbyterian. Truman recalled, "I was 6 years old and in my Sunday school class was a beautiful little girl with golden curls. I was smitten at once and still am. She's Mrs. Truman today and the mother of the loveliest daughter in the world." Harry Truman was known for being down to earth, and even after becoming the 33rd President of the United States, he never lost his small town habits. One of his favorite pastimes was taking daily walks around Independence, especially after he returned home from Washington in 1953. Residents would often spot him strolling through the streets near his home, which we'll see here in just a bit, greeting neighbors, chatting with passerbys, and waving to children. Along his route stood a famous ginkgo tree, which we still see that's standing today. The tree located near Truman's neighborhood was planted in the 1860s and has become one of Independence's most beloved landmarks. Truman often paused near the tree during his walks, and he once remarked on the uniqueness and resilience of the tree, admiring how it had survived so many decades of change around it, much like Independence itself. The Truman Home, located here on Delaware Street, was not exactly the Truman Home. Today, that is certainly what it's known for, but it wasn't official until 1952, just before Truman vacated the Oval Office. The structure itself was built by George Gates in 1867, following the conclusion of the Civil War. Originally, the home was pretty small compared to its current stature. Gates would build upon his work in 1855, creating one of the larger homes located here in Independence that had an impressive 14 rooms and over 8,000 square feet.
Nope, I've been in plenty
Before
of times.
it became significant for the man who called it home in the 20th century, the residence was already of great importance and high opinion locally. 2 years before he made his grand addition to the house, George Gates gave his daughter away in marriage to David Wallace. The young couple moved 2 miles away into this home. The Wallace family would welcome their first child in 1855 and would name her Elizabeth, or Bess as she was known to many. In 1903, David Wallace committed suicide, leaving his family with a large amount of financial difficulties and shock. To cope and get away from their grief, Margaret Wallace moved her children to Colorado for a while, but the family returned back home to the Gates home, and in 1919, Bess, their daughter, would marry a young Harry S. Truman. They would move into the house, but the house would officially still belong to Harry's mother-in-law. When Harry finally left the White House in 1953, he returned home to Independence, into this home itself. Elizabeth's mother, Margaret, passed away in 1952, just before leaving the White House, and Harry and Bess both then received ownership of the house. The president would use this residence as his personal office and base of operations for many years before he set up a personal library and a personal office at his presidential library just down the street from here. The Bingham-Waggoner Estate is considered to be one of the most historically significant homes in western Missouri. Built in the 1850s, the home is a great example of Italian villa architecture, and it's seated on about 19 acres of partially wooded property. Today, the home is part of the Bingham-Waggoner Historical Society that operates it as a historic museum house. The house itself not only is significant because of its architecture, but also because of who lived here. George Caleb Bingham, who was a famous artist, lived in this house from 1864 to 1870, and the home was also part of the home of Peter Wagner, who owned one of the largest milling companies, the Wagner Gates Milling Company. Bingham himself and his family moved to this estate shortly before the Civil War, and he maintained a studio near his house where he painted very famous paintings during that time, including one called Order Number 11, which was a military declaration that was issued in Kansas City by General Thomas Ewing that ordered everyone living in Jackson, Cass, Bates, and Vernon counties to move from their homes within 15 days. This order was a retaliatory response for a bloody raid in Lawrence, Kansas in August of 1863. Bingham, who was the state treasurer of Missouri during the Civil War, resented the order and personally went to General Ewing's office to attempt to have the order overdrawn. That order did go into effect, and it really incensed George Caleb Bingham, who painted a painting that was titled Order Number 11 that showed his displeasure at the order. In 1870, Bingham sold this home to Mr. Francis Eames, and he himself then moved to Kansas City, where he served as the police commissioner and as the assistant general of Missouri. He was then appointed the first professor of art at the University of Missouri and passed away in 1879. The other owner of the house was Peter Wagner, who moved into this house after the family had bought the old city mill from John Overfelt and moved into the house. They quickly made a name for themselves as producers of one of the highest quality flour for baking in the region. The old Missouri Pacific Railroad station is historically significant not only for its architecture, but its association with Harry S. Truman. Truman would frequently use this station when he traveled to and from Washington, D.C. before, during, and after his presidency. The station itself was built in 1913 and is a great example of Spanish Mission revival style of architecture. Truman often wrote home about seeing Bess at the station when he arrived back in town. One of the most famous trips to the Independence Station Truman took was during his campaign tour in 1948. Today, the station is known as the Truman Train Station and is a stop on Amtrak. Our final stop here on our tour in Independence is the historic Vaile Mansion. Vaile Mansion is one of Independence's most striking landmarks and was built in 1881 by Colonel Harvey Merrick Vaile and his wife Sophia. It was designed by architect M.F.C. Clark and is a great example of Second Empire architectural style. It features a very distinctive mansard roof, has elegant arched windows, and really elaborate woodwork. At the time it was completed, this 31-room mansion was considered to be one of the most luxurious homes in the region, even in the entire Midwest. Colonel Vaile was a wealthy businessman and entrepreneur who made his fortune through mail contracts and other ventures. The mansion itself boasted state-of-the-art amenities for its time, including indoor plumbing, hot and cold running water, and beautiful hand-painted ceilings. However, the Vaile's family took a tragic turn. In 1883, Colonel Vaile faced federal fraud charges related to his mail contract dealings. Although he was eventually acquitted, the legal battles and public scrutiny deeply impacted his family. That same year, Sophia Vaile died unexpectedly, and her death, believed to be connected to the stress and declining health, marked the beginning of a period of decline for both the family and the mansion itself. After Colonel Vaile's death in 1895, the property passed through several owners and served many purposes over the years, including a sanitarium for the mentally ill, a home for unwed mothers, and eventually a nursing home. In the 1980s, preservation efforts began as the City of Independence purchased the properties to save it from further deterioration. After extensive restoration, the Vaile Mansion reopened to the public and is now operated as a museum with guided tours that showcase its Victorian elegance and fascinating history. I hope you've enjoyed this Wandering Walks of Wonder tour here in historic Independence, Missouri. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Take care now. Bye-bye.